Hey guys, and welcome back to Rain Marginal. So, this is gonna be really hard for me. I'm gonna probably cry this episode. So, don't mind me if I do. Anyways, let's just jump right back in. The exhausted figure of my sister would be mine a few years later.
ねえお姉ちゃん、最後にもう一度だけ聞くけどいい？
Sis, I'll ask just one last time. Can I? Nod. At my weakly nodding sister, I continued to speak.
ここから逃げよ
Let's run from here. I didn't say it in the light-hearted, partly joking way that I used to up until now. I said them because I really wanted to flee from
う。
here.
別に神様が見てたって構わないから。
Even if God watches, I don't care.
こんなところでこんなことのために死んじゃうなんてバカらしい。
To die in a place like this for such a reason? It's stupid. Even if my sister couldn't be saved, even if this had all been done out of consideration for me, the life that I obtained from all that, at this point, its future had become worthless.
このままじゃお姉ちゃんの一生は何のためにあったのかわからないよ。だから逃げよう。
At this point, I don't even know what you've spent your life on, sis. So let's run away, okay? Even at these words, my sister remained silently looking down. Eventually, she slowly shook her head and closed her eyes. No matter what I said to her after, she didn't face me. Sis, does this mean you've accepted your fate? With the silk cloth wrapped around her mouth, even on her deathbed, that duty, the sacrifice for atonement, was what she continued to fulfill. For a debt or loan we didn't even recall making to some god or whatever, she never opened her mouth or used her voice for me. Even now, I had never heard my sister's voice, and just maybe, it might all end before I even hear it. A premonition that I didn't want to come to pass, for some reason felt like it wouldn't miss. Next month, the harsh winter came in full force. For the first time in a while, it was a night where the large moon showed its face. The cramped sleeping room that my sister and I alone used. We were sleeping there as always, when suddenly they came. With a sharp clack, the sliding door opened forcefully. Beyond was a priest and the head priest, along with a number of footmen that I recognized.
こんな夜更けにどうされたのですか？
So late in the night, is something happening? It was so sudden, I had no idea what was going on. For it to be so late at night and have many people come in one after another, it was honestly more scary than surprising.
宮司様、これは一体。
Head priest, what is? To prevent any accidents, we've come to take precautions.
手違い。
Accidents? Before I could even ask what that was, the cloth was pressed to my mouth. Then, almost like a gag, it was firmly tightened. With this, she won't be able to speak. She might make a sound suddenly, after all. The priest muttered that while I was unable to understand what was happening. What then leapt at my eyes was... What? Sis? Before me was my sister, with her mouth gagged even more tightly than mine. Moreover, pressed to her neck was a blade of a tanto, ready to tear into my sister's neck. There might be some time before she dies, but we want to make sure of the transfer, you see. Saying that, the head priest looked at the footman holding the tanto. It was then that I finally understood the situation. They're going to kill my sister. On top of that, from the instant that I would become the next sacrifice, they wanted to prevent the chance that I could use my voice. If it happened that suddenly, in a place with no one around, she were to die of her illness, there was a possibility that I would raise my voice in crying. They probably feared that. I believe you were called Rin. I'll at least say my thanks for being the sacrifice for 15 whole years. Just saying that, he glanced at the footman holding my sister in the Tonto. Please stop. Don't kill my sister. Even when I tried to use my voice, I couldn't form words. That's why I screamed in my heart. There was nothing else I could do. My body was held firmly, so I couldn't even run close to her. It was the only thing I could do. And my sister was looking at me, with a blade pressed to her wasted body. Neither able to move nor use her voice, she pleaded with her eyes. Help me. She said that. Even if she hadn't voiced it, my eyes told me. Up until now, someone who served as a priestess risked her entire life to be the sacrifice for atonement, believed in God, without question, sacrificing herself, the person whose endless smile never broke. For the first time she pleaded. For the first time, she beseeched that God for salvation. And at that time I had thought, if right now she weren't saved here, then there was no God. I know nothing but debts or loans. Don't care about atonement or sacrifice. Anyone owed those things never existed to begin with. If it was something that refused to save her right now, it was not a God. And so there was no God, is what I realized. Now, do it. Calmly. That was all the head priest said. Just as he finished saying those words, a sort of wet prayer sound, a wet spraying sound rang out. It was like the sound of water, except this wasn't water but blood. It was the sound of that spraying out from her neck. The color wasn't red, but the same black as the darkness. Sis! Unable to speak, I screamed in my heart. In front of me, I was held firmly and unable to run to her side. My sister became soaked in strongly flowing blood. My sister was looking at me, a black stain spreading over her without any apparent resistance, trying to convey something to me. With the only part of her that wasn't bound, her eyes, she gazed at me. And then, like a thread holding her up was cut, she collapsed forward. And just that easily she died. I didn't know what my sister was trying to tell me in the end, but it seemed that there wasn't a God. And so I lost my voice. I was stopped from forming words. In the end, I never once heard my sister's voice. The final time I used my voice was to the head priestess, when I said accidents? When thinking that those were my last words of my life, despite myself, I felt I was pathetic. And as the fourth sacrifice, I took up the remaining 200 plus years of atonement to pay back a debt for something that didn't exist. My life also died right here. Early spring. After those events, a few months passed and the north wind finally started to soften. In that chilly early morning, I was continuing the daily task of morning cold water, ablutions. I think that's how you even pronounce it. I have no idea. With my mouth closed, I coughed like I was choking. Unlike my sister, I always had a cloth wrapped around. No, forced around my mouth. The only time I could remove it was to eat, and then there was always a footman next to me watching. Apparently, unlike with my sister, I wasn't trusted. That was probably obvious since I had nothing I needed to protect. They seemed afraid that I might despair at everything and suddenly raise my voice. Should I just do that? They weren't omnipotent. If I suddenly, in the middle of eating, raised my voice, they probably couldn't stop me. Again and again I pushed back that impulse. One reason was because, without a doubt, I would be killed. They placed the duty of atonement above all else. For that task, they did not even think of us sacrifices as human. I was sure that I would be subjected to unimaginably cruel reprisals before being killed. And one other reason was my sister. If I were to throw it all away, the past 100 years would have to be, or would be have to start from the beginning. Or would be have to start, what? I don't understand that sentence, it was worded wrong. If that happened, then all my sister's actions would become nothing. Even if it were for a stupid thing, I would lose sight of just what my sister lived her life for all these years. So this wasn't for the head priest, nor the shrine, nor myself, and certainly not for some god. It was for my sister that I was throwing away my own life, resolving to live as a sacrifice. I had yet to turn 11. I was a young, ignorant, powerless person, or person's own kind of determination. Summer. The season where cicadas loudly called and the heat returned. Today I also finished my daily duty and I was lying down in my bedroom. Perhaps my determination to live on as a sacrifice was finally understood, since there wasn't anyone at my side constantly watching over me. But knowing them, they're probably not at ease with just this. From what I'd heard, they were bringing someone in from somewhere. Of course, a spare. Mine. While I was still healthy right now, that didn't mean I would be forever. They certainly knew that well. Even if it weren't my sister, continuing to live this way made it obvious. For my age, I had become thinner. Looking at my own young body, that's what I felt. That night, I quietly had my eyes closed and was about to fall into a light sleep. Did something make a sound? Focusing on my ears, I didn't hear things, but people's voices. Even though it was late at night, there seemed to be sounds of shouting and screams. Sensing that something wasn't right, I got up. The voices were still far away, but without a doubt they were coming from within the shrine. So I put my hand on the sliding door to take a look outside the bedroom. When before I could open it myself, it slammed open. Quick! Run! Quickly! The first thing, the familiar young footman said upon entering. However, contrary to how he usually appeared, his breathing was ragged and he was very agitated. He was also wearing bright red clothing. Just what had happened? Gesturing with my hands and whole body, I asked him, "Just go quickly. They're raising the place. Anyone found is being killed. No, they'd make sure to kill you." Saying that, the footman pointed to the rear gardens. Looking closer, I could see that red on him was his own blood. I saw that there were also various cuts on parts of his clothing and body. It's over for this shrine. With those words, he finally fell face down onto the floor. Just what should I do? The faraway screams I heard just before were now very close. I don't know what's going on, but I have to get out of here. While looking at that man who apparently had died before me, that's what I thought. I ran straight from the rear gardens into the mountains. I didn't look around. I was too afraid. I didn't dare turn around. Running as fast as I could, the cloth bound around my mouth to keep me from speaking added to my difficulty breathing, but I didn't move to remove it. That was because I had no idea what the situation was right now. Eventually, hiding myself along a small path in the forest, I slowly caught my breath. Then fearfully, I looked back at the place I had run from. Burning? Is that the shrine that's burning? Behind me, the area where the shrine stood was glowing bright red in the darkness. There was no reason to believe it was anything other than fire. Then what happened to all the other people? Or is it like the footman said, everyone was killed? Then there wasn't much need to think about it. Most likely it was true. While running through the rear garden, I remembered hearing a number of familiar voices changing into screams. The head priest, lower priests, the other priestesses, the many footmen that came from the court. I had heard that despite being a small shrine, it had a historical significance. Did such places get raised like this all the time? Or not all the time, all of a sudden? No matter how much I thought, I couldn't find a reason. But there was a much bigger problem. What should I do now? Could it be that with the shrine gone, I've been released from the role of being the sacrifice for atonement? Or was it that so long as this world existed, I had a duty to continue it? I just didn't know. However, I understood that if I were found, I would be killed. I started moving the feet that had stopped on the forest path deeper into the forest. I didn't know just how far a child's feet could continue running. But there was nothing I could do. Half a year later, late autumn, deep on a mountain, around when the red-stained leaves on the trees were starting to drop and the weather was slowly changing into winter. Living here in hiding, a few months passed before I noticed. They were days pieced together with wild plants and fish from a stream. Of course, I had thought about going down into the village a number of times. Thought about it, but I would get scared and would be unable to leave the mountain. There might be someone on watch. The people who had attacked the shrine might just be simple robbers in the night. I think that was the most likely case, but people who would burn down a holy shrine might be someone with greater influence. If that were true, I couldn't be careless and get myself found. Normally, the footmen were people from the imperial court and had no connection to the shrine. But despite that, they were also killed, so I doubt they would let a priestess associated with the shrine go, even if it were a young child. But while I thought about that, there was another reason. Actually, this one was even bigger. If I go into the village, what would happen to me? A failed priestess with no skills? Someone who was nothing more than a sacrifice? Did I have a way to live? With those doubts gathered together, I just couldn't find the courage to leave the mountain. And yet, even now I didn't use my voice. And every day I had cold water, ablutions? I don't know. I still don't know what that word even is. Continuing my duty of atonement. To be honest, not even I knew the reason why. Even though I didn't have a sister I could rely on now, and that head priest that I disliked wasn't here. And moreover, even if I spent my entire life continuing on, there wouldn't be anyone to come after. With even the shrine now gone, it was all meaningless. 2 months later, winter. Snow fell from the sky and stained the black mountains in white. Facing the oncoming of deep winter, I had a premonition that I was going to die soon. I haven't eaten anything in 3 days already. Moreover, with the snow covering the area, it didn't seem likely that there would be something edible around. The bountiful autumn mountain had changed, and in the winter the mountains became like a land where the living died. But that would be fine. Dying wouldn't be bad. Since my sister's death and taking on being the sacrifice for atonement, I had been the same as dead. Right now, there were only 2 things I regretted. The first was that I wasn't able to say my complaints to God or whatever it was. The other was that I wanted to hear just once my sister's voice. That was it. But maybe that might be granted if I die. Imagining my sister's voice within my heart, it was a very bright and cute voice. With those gentle words in my ears, I quietly closed my eyes. While falling slowly to sleep, I wished that I would just never wake up. The next time I wake up, I think I would hate being in this world. Alright guys, so let's go back to the guy's story. So it's Rainy World. I can hear the sound of rain. I had no idea what time it was now, but for some reason I woke up. Which is to be expected if you think about it. To suddenly come to a place like this and not understand what was going on. I just didn't have the nerves to be able to sleep soundly. Ow! I slowly opened my eyes while getting up. Since I had been sleeping directly on the stone floor, my back hurt a bit. I had heard it'd be pitch black, but you can somewhat see. Once your eyes adjusted, you could just barely make out what was around you. Of course, it was just a few meters in front of your eyes. Beyond that, the pitch blackness spread out wide. I guess it's like she said. If I were in a place far from here and it suddenly became dark, I might have been at a loss. And also, if there were no other place with a roof beside here, then it would mean no matter where you went, you would be continuously rained on. Thinking about that, my eyes drifted to the bench. Oh, you were awake too? What's wrong? Even for my question, there wasn't any real reply. In the dark, she just quietly looked at me. No, she seemed to be glaring at me. Eventually, she opened her mouth.
あなた、どうして帰らないの？
You, why don't you go back? Huh? Not just her voice and her way of speaking. Even her aura had clearly changed. You're Rin, right?
他に誰が？
Is there anyone else? She spat those words out without expression. For an instant I thought she might have been a different person, but that wasn't possible. No matter how you looked, she appeared exactly the same. And more than anything else, I had heard that there wasn't anyone else around.
それよりも、こんなところにいても無駄よ。
More importantly, there's no point in staying in a place like this. No point? What do you mean?
言葉の通りよ。さっさと元の世界に帰りなさい。
I mean what I say, so hurry up and return to your homeworld. Blandly declaring that, she pointed outside to the falling rain. Well, I was planning on going back eventually, but I had no intention of going back in the dark while it was raining. I was supposed to have about 3 days worth of time. But I am all out of time, guys, for this episode. So if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!